Hello, my friends. So there's a lot going on, obviously, with a lot of things that I've been speaking about for years. I know that there is an event that is going to come that is going to obliterate the physical land of Israel. It's going to wipe it off the earth. And I don't know the timing of that event, whether it be at the coming of the Lord or whether it happens at some point before that or even some point after that. I don't know the timing of that. But what I do know for sure is that it will be burned in the fire, because no longer are we to look to things of outside appearance, but you're to look at the heart, the inside of things, to determine what things are and who people are. And this is why the church that calls itself a church, it's why it's fallen. It's why it's in a state of apostasy. It looks at everything on the outside as though it is. It's the reference that Jesus made when one comes in their own name, he you will accept. As long as somebody declares something with their mouth, which the tongue is deceitful to the core, as long as somebody says something, they're going to believe it because they don't look at the inside of things. So thus they're led astray by the physical things, the outside of things. So they're led astray by physical Israel. That is the golden calf of the church. The same way that whenever Moses went up, and he comes back down and he sees Aaron and the rest of the Israelites worshiping this golden calf, the same thing has happened with the church after Jesus Christ went up. Only it didn't happen within a period of one generation. Obviously, it's been 2,000 years that Satan has been allowed to do the works and perform the works that he is performing right now over the earth, because the church has fallen away. It's in a state of apostasy. Since 1948, it's been in that apostasy. It's been fallen away. It's been led astray by the golden calf. Jesus is up in New Jerusalem, but the fallen church looks back at physical Jerusalem in the same way that whenever Satan took Jesus up on the mountain, he shows him all of Israel, all of Jerusalem, and says, "This I will give to you if you bow down and worship me." Jesus rejected that, but the church in 1948 says, "Yes, we will follow you, great land of Israel, the land of our ancestors," the physical Israel, the physical things. They neglect the third temple, which is in New Jerusalem, which comes down from heaven to replace old Jerusalem. A new heaven and a new earth being born. There is God dwelling amongst his people. This all is fulfilled and happens when Christ comes down in the physical land that he is living in right now, the house with many homes, or the house with many rooms, New Jerusalem. When that comes down, that is what replaces all of the physical things on the earth. A new heaven and a new earth are created. But the church looks at all of these events because, well, they call themselves Jews. That must mean they're Jews. They live in physical Israel. That must mean they're Jews there. They call themselves Jews. They live in physical Israel. And who cares if they don't believe in Jesus Christ or reject their Messiah? It doesn't matter, because God's going to come back and rescue them anyway, because he has made his eternal covenant with Israel, and he will never break an eternal covenant, without understanding that the reason that eternal covenant can be eternal and that it's given to the whole world is because Jesus Christ fulfilled that eternal covenant. In other words, on the inside is where you find that covenant, in the hearts, the circumcision of the heart. The circumcision of the flesh doesn't matter anymore. It's the circumcision of the heart. And God looks to the heart, the inside of things, the reason for things, rather than the outside appearance of things. So they look at this physical land of people calling themselves Jews, the historical land of Israel, and they marvel and wonder over it, and Satan leads them down a path of being led astray further and further by it, because they're only examining the outside of things. They make two paths to God. One path, believe in your heart, say it in your mouth, and you're saved. Jesus Christ is my Lord, hallelujah, you're born again. But if you're a Jew and you live in Israel, God's going to save you anyway, outside of Jesus Christ, just because it's an eternal covenant. They don't recognize the eternal covenant is in Christ, and that all are Israel who believe upon him. And outside of believing upon him, there is no Israel. They don't understand the transformation of power from what is in the world to what is coming down from heaven to replace that which is in the world. And that's why they will call people such as me replacement theologists. And it's because they don't understand that that's what the covenant did. It didn't replace anything, it fulfilled it. In Christ is Israel. That's the fulfillment of the covenant. Outside of Christ, there is no fulfillment of the covenant. There is no path. No matter where you live, who you are, what your ancestors were, there is no path to salvation outside of Jesus Christ. That is the new covenant. That's why it's a better covenant than the old covenant was. It's not a replacement of an old covenant. It's not a replacement of what God promised to Israel. It's the fulfillment of it. And these things they cannot understand. So thus, today, whenever you're going through your YouTube videos or your news feeds, you're going to see thousands and thousands of people now in hysteria about the attack that occurred in Israel. Which Israel, that land, is the golden calf of the church. They worship that land and its people, who are Satan's people, even at the expense of their own land and their own people. They replace their own land, their own house, their own responsibilities with a foreign responsibility that they were to never be part of. That's how far it has gone. It almost, if there was an attack last night, let's say in California or in Hawaii or in New York City, or name your place, if there was a missile attack on the United States last night, and there was this missile attack that happened in Israel last night, the church would be out there in uproar about the attack that happened in Israel rather than even in their own land. That's how far they have gone down the idol worship of this land. And this is their judgment ultimately. Because physical Israel will be thrown into the fire. And how do you know that? Because that's what happened to the golden calf. But the interesting connection to all of this, whenever you're thinking about the golden calf, how did it ultimately meet its demise? And this is why you have to look at the inside of things. Whenever Moses came down and saw this, he was furious. Well, right now, who is up in the heavens? Jesus Christ. So when Jesus comes down, he is in the image of Moses upon his appearance in the earth. He will look at these things, and he will be the one that gets Israel to throw the golden calf into the fire to destroy it. And who is Israel in the world? Those who believe in Jesus Christ. There's no other way to get to Israel outside of that, because it's in heaven. It's a New Jerusalem. So, upon the appearance of Moses coming back down, Israel realized what they did and they turned from it. And this is exactly what happens at the rapture. Upon the appearance of Christ coming back down, those who are actually Israel, those who believe in Jesus Christ, they will turn from all of these things they're doing right now, and they will throw Israel into the fire in the same way. It will be burned up because of the turning of the church. Because God right now is bringing all of this about to show them who he actually is and what they were actually led astray by. He's building it up. And you'll see this grand attack on Israel and all of these things that are happening. You're immediately going to get the people. It's escalating into World War III. This is it. And Israel is the abomination that causes desolation. Israel does bring about World War III. Ultimately, they are the ones who will bring it about. It's what's going to happen right now in the Middle East that ultimately leads to it, because you have all of the ties of the other countries. Iran and Turkey and Syria and Russia. Everything is tied to this Middle East, which brings about World War III. So that is why they are the abomination that causes desolation. They're an abomination because they're masquerading as God, and they're not. And they cause desolation because the events that are going to take place there lead to the desolation of the world. But you have a period of things and time that happens, that escalates gradually over time. So in the world, you look at it almost like a pressure cooker. And it's just being turned up ever so slightly. And there will be wars and rumors of wars. That's how Christ describes this pressure cooker. And this very well, more than likely, is another step along that process of the pressure cooker being turned up. Eventually, everything's going to cook. But I had a dream last night that was very significant to me, because, again, it was about aquariums. And The first dream I had about an aquarium, I saw that the glass shattered, all the water poured out of it. Everything shattered. But last night in my dream, in the aquariums that I saw, they had fallen off their stand, but they did not break. They were picked back up and put back in place, and the fish put back in the tank. That to me signifies a pausing. Look at what's happening, but what you two are expect of the war, of the end, is not just yet. There's more to come for it. Because I was able to pick the aquarium back up, put it back together, the pieces back together, put the fish back in it, nothing shattered. But when I stacked the aquariums back on top of each other, they were flimsier than they were before. It was almost like, if you move by it, you could knock them back over again. They were flimsy. Strength had been taken away from them. So what it seems to me is going to happen is this is again going to be something that passes, and they're going to rebuild it back up, and ultimately something's going to come out of it that looks like a stable platform until ultimately it is destroyed, thrown into the fire, which comes on the Lord's return. So there's a lot of things going on right now that it's going to involve hysteria of this fallen church because they do not know that they are Israel. They're looking to a people masquerading as Israel as though they are, because they don't know the inside, they don't know the heart, they only know the outside appearance of things and what something calls themselves. And there's going to be mass hysteria that this is the event that's leading into the rapture. They'll bring out other calendar dates to this. They'll use the Jewish calendars. Oh, this was off, that was off. You're going to see all of these things happen right now from this church that has lost its ability to reason and function. They're in a state of emotional distress over their idol being attacked. And if you look historically at things such as this was an attack that more than likely was allowed to happen. Look historically. The attack on Pearl Harbor, we had translated that attack was going to come, and we let it happen. The attacks on 9/11, it came out later after that. We had understood that was going to take place, and it came about. Whenever things like this come out, historically, it's done for a purpose, to lead a nation, to get the population on their side so that they can wage war, having the populace of that nation accept it and be ready for it and prepared for it. It's a state of propaganda. And more than likely that is what happened last night, is they've been defending these rocket attacks and missile attacks for years. But suddenly last night you have a big one come up and Israel looks like they're flat-footed and unprepared. No, I guarantee you that we knew all about it, and so did they, and they let it happen. Because they want ultimately to push into this war. They are the abomination that causes desolation, and they thirst and hunger for blood. And it will come. But there might be a period of time here where there's a little bit of a rebuilding, a putting back together, putting back in place of things. The end has not come just yet. And my hopes is that it's right here. It's right at the door. It's ready to come. The Lord's coming. He's returning right now. If all of these events are going to play out after he comes and gathers his people, then so be that. That is what they need to remove the scales from their eyes. But I've also learned over these last 8 years that the Lord is very slow to anger. He is very meticulous and methodical in the way that he allows people to do things and go about their businesses. He gives every last opportunity for the people in the world to turn. And that's what this seems like to me, based upon that dream in most part that I had last night of the aquariums. It seems like this again looks like it's a grand escalation going to lead to total destruction of everything, World War III, but it's going to be put back together before that happens. And then after it's put back together, that's whenever you watch, because that's a time of peace and safety. So this is my thoughts on all of these things that are going on, and do not be led astray by all of these churches and people that you see that are fallen, coming out and speaking all about physical Israel and the land. They're doing all of that because it's their idol. They worship it. It's their golden calf, and they can't get away from it until the Lord returns and removes the scales from their eyes, because their hearts have been darkened. The Lord has allowed them to stumble and fall into this pit, the blind leading the blind, because of their own hearts being unchanged. And Iran is going to have a connection to this. I know this because over the last 2 weeks, wrestling, again, has been something that's been used frequently with me to show me different things in the world. And the Iron Sheik specifically was given to me time and time and time again. If you look at this picture of him here, he's pointing up. He's got an Iran flag draped over him. Iran is absolutely involved in what's happening right now over there. And then another thing to look out for, the whispers of Hillary Clinton in 2024 have started. Hillary Clinton now seemingly is making a comeback into the picture. And now in the dream that I had, where the ATMs closed at 5 o'clock and all the presidents were sitting behind the desk, Barack Obama pointing at me and said, "Do not trust her, trust God." You had Donald Trump coming up from the back, out of the shadows. So you had all the presidents, and then you had Donald Trump, who would become president a few months after that dream. The only one that was standing behind that desk that has never been president was Hillary Clinton. So whether she's the one pulling the strings back there, or whether she will be the next president of America, I don't know. But I know that all of this was attached to the dream, and she's coming up right at this time, about the same time that everything else happened in that dream years ago, whenever Donald Trump was first running in 2016. So just some things to look out for, and to always watch and remain on guard, because Satan has led this whole world astray, and we have Christ so that we're not led astray. We walk not in darkness but in light, and let nobody take that peace of Christ away from you, no matter what. God bless.